You think you guide your mind, though it has already mapped every doorway you believed you discovered. Every fear, every habit, every self-improvement attempt is nothing more than a shadow tugging invisible strings. What happens when you finally notice the puppeteer behind your thoughts? You move through life convinced that your decisions are yours. It feels empowering to choose who to trust, what to chase, what to become. Yet psychologists describe a darker mechanism: unconscious conditioning. Everything you fear today was planted long ago, often before memory formed. You learned which emotions were allowed, which dreams were ridiculous, which parts of you deserved to be hidden. These internal rules never introduce themselves. They simply enforce obedience. You might call it personality, but it is programming. Your mind edits reality, suppresses memories, deletes possibilities, and tells you the missing pieces never existed. How can you fight a manipulator who knows your weaknesses better than you ever will? Perfectionism disguises itself as ambition. You chase flawlessness believing it will grant you worth. Yet perfectionism is not a hunger for excellence. It is a terror of inadequacy. Research shows that perfectionists are driven by avoidance, not aspiration. You do not reach for the stars. You run from shame. Every achievement dissolves too quickly because the goalposts move the moment you approach them. Praise feels accidental, temporary, undeserved. You rehearse every mistake you might make until trying feels more dangerous than failing. The cage gleams with gold because you polished the bars yourself. What happens when the standard you serve becomes higher than any human can survive? Developmental psychology has a cruel secret. A child does not learn who they are, but who they must be to remain loved. You shaped yourself around the approval available to you, contorting identity into something acceptable, safe, tolerable. Punishment trained you to fear your own impulses. Praise trained you to crave validation like oxygen. Those rules calcified, became unconscious laws, and now every action is a compliance test with parents who no longer need to be present. Even when they are gone, their voices still whisper inside your decisions. You confuse this echo with intuition. What if every preference you trust is nothing but a survival strategy masquerading as identity? Anxiety promises protection. It warns you of every potential threat, every social misstep, every imagined catastrophe. It feels like vigilance, responsibility, intelligence. Clinical psychology calls it hypervigilance, a brain rewired by fear to see danger everywhere, including inside your own thoughts. The body remains trapped in survival mode long after the threat is gone, reacting to memories as if they are monsters with teeth. You call it being careful, cautious, prepared. In truth, you are performing rituals to appease an internal tyrant that never sleeps. Anxiety convinces you that worry prevents ruin, while the real ruin is the life you abandon in its name. If safety costs your freedom, who exactly is being kept safe? You pride yourself on self-awareness, as if noticing your flaws grants you power over them. Cognitive psychology laughs at that. Awareness does not liberate. It often deepens the trap. You know you overthink, yet you cannot stop. You know you fear rejection, yet the fear still puppets your behavior. You analyze every insecurity like a scientist studying a wild animal, unaware that you are the creature in the cage. Insight becomes another way to judge yourself, to measure your inadequacy with clinical precision. Self-improvement morphs into self-surveillance. Every attempt to fix yourself confirms that you are broken. How can you ever escape a maze that rebuilds itself around each step you take? Social psychology reveals a brutal truth. You understand yourself only by measuring yourself against others. Every image, every success, every effortless smile you witness in others becomes a mirror reflecting what you lack. You tell yourself it is motivation, inspiration, benchmarking. Yet comparison is a parasite. It feeds on your self-esteem while pretending to nourish you. You cannot escape it because the mind cannot see your own life neutrally. It judges, subtracts, and punishes relentlessly. Even solitude becomes a trial because your inner eye continues tallying failures, whispering that everyone else is ahead, better, lighter. When every reflection is a verdict, how can you know who you are beneath the weight of judgment? You crave control, as if mastering your schedule, your habits, your thoughts could shield you from chaos. Psychology calls this the illusion of control, the mind's desperate attempt to assert dominance over randomness. You organize, plan, micromanage, and still feel helpless. Every victory feels provisional, every plan a fragile construct. Control is never complete. The shadows inside you laugh at spreadsheets, routines, and affirmations. The very act of trying to govern your mind proves its autonomy over you. You imagine mastery, while the unseen patterns of your upbringing, fears, and unconscious drives shape outcomes behind your back. If control is never real, why do you obey its fantasy so obediently? Your memory is a storyteller, not a recorder. Cognitive psychology shows it constantly rewrites the past, favoring narratives that make sense of trauma, shame, or regret. You trust your recollections as evidence of who you are, unaware that every memory is a filter, a distortion, a shadow of truth. You cling to lessons learned, yet those lessons are often inventions of fear or guilt. Childhood echoes, forgotten humiliations, and erased joys reconstruct themselves endlessly, folding into your present as silent instructions. You act today based on stories your brain insists are factual, yet even the storyteller cannot be trusted. If your mind lies to you about your past, what else is it willing to fabricate? Psychology identifies self-sabotage not as laziness, but as a deeply ingrained coping mechanism. You know exactly what could help you, yet you resist. You procrastinate, overthink, avoid, or ruin opportunities, all while rationalizing your actions. Behavioral patterns formed in childhood fear of failure, fear of success, fear of intimacy become invisible chains. You repeat mistakes as if performing a sacred rite, proving to yourself that the world is dangerous, that you are undeserving, that hope is illusion. Every deliberate act of destruction is secretly comforting because chaos feels familiar. If you are your own enemy, who is left to betray you? And does it even matter anymore? The shadow in Jungian psychology is not metaphor. It is the collection of traits, desires, fears, and impulses you have been trained to deny. You pretend to be a coherent self while the shadow grows quietly, shaping choices, whispering forbidden truths, guiding compulsions. Every act of civility, every social mask, every effort at self-improvement is measured against this hidden aspect. It knows your secrets, your obsessions, your shame, and it waits, patient and unjudging, for moments of weakness. You believe the self you see is complete, moral, rational, yet it is only half a story. How long until the half you ignore dictates the whole of your life? Dissociation is the mind's secret withdrawal from unbearable reality, a mechanism where consciousness fragments to survive trauma or overwhelming stress. You may notice moments when life feels unreal, when your own actions seem distant, as if performed by someone else. Psychologists describe it as a protective fog, but the fog does not lift. It accumulates, layer upon layer, until the person you believe yourself to be is nothing but a convenient illusion. You navigate the world through shadows of yourself, unaware that your presence is partial, curated, and borrowed. If your mind can detach you from your own existence, then who truly inhabits your life, and does it even need your permission? Rumination is the brain's recursive loop, an endless echo of mistakes, fears, and what-ifs. Clinical psychology calls it a form of mental torture. You are both victim and warden. Every thought circles back to the same wounds, dissecting them with surgical precision, offering no solution, only repetition. You try to escape, only to find the loop strengthens with each attempt at control. The mind folds in on itself, replaying old conversations, reimagining betrayals, inventing new horrors from familiar patterns. Rumination masquerades as problem-solving, yet it is a self-perpetuating trap, convincing you that analysis is progress while ensuring paralysis. If your own thoughts are your cruelest captors, who remains outside to save you? From birth, the rules of society press into you like invisible bricks. Social psychology explains how norms, roles, and expectations shape behavior before conscious choice appears. You believe in free will, yet your choices often mimic patterns ingrained by observation, reward, and punishment. The urge to belong overrides instincts, muting desires that do not conform. Every compromise, every silent concession, every moral adjustment chips away at your authenticity. Even rebellion can be a script, written by the culture you claim to resist. You are an actor on a stage whose design you never saw, performing roles written long before you learned your own name. When your scripts are invisible, who writes the lines you think are yours? Depression is not sadness. It is the brain's recalibration of possibility. Neuroscience reveals altered neurotransmitters, flattened affect, and distorted cognition. But psychology uncovers the deeper erosion, the sense that nothing you do matters, that the self you inhabit is a fragile lie. Motivation collapses under the weight of internalized failures and impossible standards. Pleasure becomes distant, memory dulls, and even awareness feels burdensome. You may try to push through, yet each effort is met with resistance from a mind convinced of futility. The shadows you have carried since childhood gather here, dragging you into quiet surrender. If the gravity pulling you down is your own mind, how can you ever rise without breaking? Shame is the whisper that you are fundamentally flawed, unworthy, defective. Developmental and social psychology show it forms in childhood, when natural impulses clash with external expectations, then hardens into an invisible shackle. You cover, hide, correct, and apologize preemptively, as if the act of existing itself is a crime. Unlike guilt, which targets behavior, shame targets the self, making every action feel suspect, every achievement hollow. You perform rituals of compliance, seeking acceptance that never truly arrives, while your mind quietly catalogs every misstep. What if the deepest director of your life is not reason, desire, or circumstance, but this invisible, unrelenting verdict? Obsessive thought is not curiosity. It is imprisonment. Clinical psychology identifies obsessive-compulsive patterns as the mind looping endlessly around danger, morality, or desire. You believe focus is productivity, yet obsession binds your attention, turning insight into torment. Every image, memory, or possibility becomes a lever to pull, a scenario to replay, until your own mind feels like a locked room with no key. Even attempts at distraction feed the loop, reinforcing its authority. You might call it diligence or conscientiousness, but it is always a shadowed mirror of compulsion masquerading as choice. If your own mind can trap you in endless thought, who holds the key to your freedom? Or was it ever yours to begin with? Your sense of self feels solid, coherent, continuous, but psychology exposes a fractured reality. Identity is an assemblage of roles, expectations, memories, and internalized voices, stitched together by fleeting attention. Trauma, social pressure, and childhood conditioning splinter the self into compartments, each obeying its own logic. You might believe you are authentic, yet every interaction triggers masks, rehearsed behaviors, survival strategies. Self-improvement becomes a performance to reconcile the fragments, yet the act of trying itself highlights the fractures. You are not one mind, but a coalition of competing shadows, negotiating territory in silence. If the self you present is a patchwork of survival, what remains of the original you that first felt, first feared, first hoped? Fear is recursive. Evolutionary psychology shows it as a survival mechanism. Yet in the human mind, it becomes self-feeding, endlessly reflecting on itself. You fear failure, fear shame, fear abandonment, and then fear the fear itself, creating spirals with no exit. Each attempt to quell anxiety feeds its intensity, because the mind interprets avoidance as evidence of danger. Your thoughts coil like snakes, biting their own tails, whispering that every choice is perilous. Even self-improvement, once a tool, becomes another vector for terror. What if you fail while trying to improve? If fear can observe itself, anticipate itself, and multiply itself inside you, where does it end, or does it ever? You believe in choice, in freedom, in agency, but neuroscience and psychology reveal the quiet usurpation of the mind. Every decision, from the trivial to the profound, is influenced by prior conditioning, subconscious drives, and neural biases. The more you analyze, the more you see patterns you cannot escape. Reactions, compulsions, desires, all quietly predetermined. Attempts to assert control only confirm the authority of the unseen forces shaping you. Even moral reasoning bends under the weight of inherited trauma and learned scripts. Autonomy is an illusion dressed in consciousness. If the mind that feels free is already commandeered, then who exactly is steering the life you think is yours? You thought this journey was observation, reflection, perhaps even mastery. Instead, it is revelation. The mind you trusted, the self you nurtured, the choices you cherished, all shadows of earlier forces, habits, and fears. Childhood whispers, social codes, shame, obsession, and anxiety have been quietly conducting every thought, every action, every perceived insight. You are not separate from these currents. You are composed of them, folded into their patterns, dancing to rhythms you never chose. Reality, once a canvas for your agency, becomes a mirror of internal coercion. Even awareness, the one tool you prized, exists within the architecture of control. If every layer of thought, every memory, every impulse is prescripted by forces you cannot name or resist, then what remains for you to claim as your own? And do you even want it?